I opened the window of my small hotel room and let the cool air brush my face. It was early afternoon, and the city below was loud and alive. People hurried along the sidewalks. Students rode bicycles past busy shops, and buses stopped again and again near the university gates. I had driven from my home near the coast to spend a quiet weekend in the city. After a long, exhausting week at work, I needed space to breathe, think, and feel like myself again. My name is Marina Hale, and I am 50 years old. I run a small but successful design business. I spent years building it, working day and night to make it strong. People often describe me as confident, organized, and independent. They notice my clothes, my posture, and the calm way I move through the world. Many believe I live a perfect life, but in truth, I often felt deeply alone. I lived by myself, and sometimes my own home felt unfamiliar, as if I were only a visitor in it. That afternoon, after checking into the hotel, I walked to a university cafe I had visited many times before. I always came there when I needed quiet energy. The cafe was full of young people, studying, laughing, and speaking excitedly about their futures. Watching them made me feel peaceful and sometimes a little younger. I ordered a coffee and sat by the window. Sunlight warmed my hands through the glass, and for a few minutes, everything felt calm and simple. Then I noticed a young man standing near the counter. He looked about 25. His dark hair fell in soft curls across his forehead. His clothes were clean but worn. He studied the menu, then opened his wallet. His shoulders dropped, and his lips pressed together. He looked hungry but unsure. He did not ask anyone for help. He did not meet anyone's eyes. He simply stood there, quiet worry written across his face. Something inside me shifted. I recognized that look. I knew what it felt like to count your money and wonder if it was enough. I remembered my own early years, working in a small shop and saving every coin for classes. I usually avoided speaking to strangers, but that day felt different. I felt something warm rise in my chest, part courage, part kindness. I stood up, took a deep breath, and walked toward him. When he noticed me, his eyes widened in surprise. His name, as I later learned, was Liam Carter. He was a university student who worked part-time at a bakery to help pay his bills. His parents lived far away, and he tried not to ask them for help. He did not want to worry them. He told me he had been having a difficult week and had skipped breakfast. He spoke softly, choosing his words carefully, as if unsure of each one. There was a quiet honesty in his expression. I offered to buy him lunch. At first, he looked confused, then embarrassed. But there was also something hopeful in his eyes. When he finally agreed, he thanked me in a voice filled with more emotion than he probably intended. We sat at a small table, and he ate quickly, as if he had not eaten for hours. I watched him with a strange ache in my chest. He reminded me of a younger version of myself, someone trying to move forward one small step at a time. We talked for a long time. He told me about his classes, his friends, and his job. He spoke passionately about his dream of becoming a writer. He wanted to write stories about real people and real emotions. I listened, and something warm grew inside me. I shared small pieces of my life, my business, my quiet evenings, my routines. When he laughed at something I said, I felt lighter, as if time had briefly stepped aside. After that day, I did not expect to see him again. I thought it was simply a kind moment that would fade. But 2 days later, when I returned to the same cafe, he walked in and saw me. His face brightened instantly. I was surprised by how warm I felt when I saw him. He asked if he could sit with me, and I said yes. We talked again, and time slipped by without notice. Soon, it became a habit. Every week we met for coffee or took quiet walks through the park behind the library. Sometimes we sat near the river and watched the water glide beneath the bridge. Everything about those moments felt easy and safe. He liked to listen. He asked thoughtful questions about my work and my life. Sometimes I felt shy answering because he looked at me as if my words truly mattered. He told me about his dreams and the stories he wanted to write. Stories about courage, loss, and hope. I told him I understood those themes well. As the weeks passed, something in the air between us changed. I felt it first during a walk through the park one afternoon. The trees were full of green leaves, and the sky was pale and gentle. A breeze moved through the branches. He reached out and touched my hand briefly. It was soft and warm. I did not pull away. Another day, his fingers stayed in mine a little longer. I told myself it meant nothing. I told myself he was young and kind, and perhaps simply trusted me. But inside, something new was beginning to grow. One evening by the river, he brushed a strand of hair away from my face. The touch was slow and careful. My breath caught. He looked at me calmly and said that being with me made him feel stronger. I looked away because my chest felt too heavy and too warm at the same time. I was confused by my own heart. I was older, experienced, and usually careful. Yet around him, I felt young and open. It felt like a door had quietly opened in my life. At night, I thought about him more than I wanted to admit. His gentle voice, his humor, the way he listened with full attention. Something inside me shifted, something soft, hopeful, and dangerous. I tried to convince myself it was only friendship, but deep down, I knew it was becoming more. I knew this path was risky for someone my age, yet I did not want to turn away. The following week was filled with excitement and doubt. Every time I saw him, the confusion deepened. Every time he stood close, I felt a pull I could not ignore. I tried to keep my thoughts simple, but my heart refused to listen. I felt alive in a way I had not felt in years. And then one quiet evening, everything changed. The air was cool when we left a small restaurant near the river. The sky was turning blue and gray, and the streetlights cast soft circles on the pavement. We walked slowly, neither of us wanting the evening to end. My heart beat faster than usual, and I wondered if he could hear it. We reached a quiet street near the college gardens. The smell of wet grass drifted through the air. He stopped and turned to face me. His eyes were warm and gentle. For a moment, the world felt still. He stepped closer and placed his hand on my cheek. His touch was careful and tender. My breath deepened, and my body responded before my mind could. I knew what was coming, and I felt fear and desire together. I closed my eyes and allowed myself to feel the moment instead of thinking about it. He kissed me. At first, it was slow and gentle, like a question without words. Then the kiss deepened. Warmth spread through my chest. I forgot the world beyond that moment. I forgot our age difference, the opinions of others, and the careful life I had built. In that kiss, I felt new again. It felt like my heart had opened after years of silence. When the kiss ended, I felt lightheaded and unable to speak. He looked at me with hopeful eyes, and my heart opened even further. I knew the choice I was making. I knew the risks. But in that moment, emotion was stronger than fear. That night changed everything. It changed how I saw him, how I saw myself, and how I saw the future. Over the following days, we began to meet more often. We walked through quiet streets, sat in small cafes, and watched the river move slowly beneath the bridge. Sometimes we sat close in silence. Sometimes we talked for hours about dreams and fears. When he laughed, warmth filled my chest. When he shared stories from his childhood, I felt protective. When he looked tired from work and study, I wanted to care for him. It surprised me how quickly he became important to me. It felt as if he had entered my life through a small door and slowly filled every corner of my heart. One weekend, we sat on a bench near an old bookshop, and he took my hand. His fingers were warm and steady. He looked at me kindly. I told myself not to fall too deeply, but I already had. He said being with me made him feel seen and understood. He said he felt stronger when we were together. I was moved by his words. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to believe he cared for me for who I was, not for what I owned. At that time, it felt true. His presence felt like a gift. As weeks passed, our relationship grew deeper. We shared dinners in small restaurants. We watched films in my living room. He made tea in my kitchen and moved with an easy grace that felt comforting and familiar. Sometimes he stood behind me and placed his hands on my shoulders, and I felt a deep sense of peace. One night, after a long day at work, I sat on the sofa feeling exhausted. He joined me, placed a blanket over my legs, and rested his head near my shoulder. I felt calm in a way I had not felt for many years. Soon, he began staying at my home more often. First 1 night a week, then 2. Eventually, his shoes were always by the door, and his books lay on my table. I became used to the sound of him moving through the house. I liked waking up to the sound of his breathing beside me. I began to imagine a future filled with warmth and hope. I knew love could be complicated, but I believed we could build something real. I felt young again whenever he held me. One evening, he asked if I would travel to Italy with him. He described a quiet place with small streets, warm hills, and simple dinners with fresh bread and fruit. I loved the idea. We planned a short trip for the following month. During that trip, something stronger formed between us. He held my hand tightly as we walked through the old village. When we ate outside, he looked at me as if I were the most important person in his world. The Italian sun made everything feel soft and unreal. On our last evening, we sat on a hill overlooking the sea. The sky was golden, and the air was warm against my skin. He turned to me, emotion in his eyes, and told me he loved me. His voice was steady and sincere. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. Then he asked me to marry him. At first, I laughed because it felt sudden and unexpected. But when I saw the seriousness in his eyes, my heart shifted. He said he loved who I was, not what I owned. He said he wanted a life with me. I chose to trust him. I agreed to marry him. We had a small ceremony in Italy. There were no guests, only the sea, the sunlight, and a quiet moment between us. I wore a simple white dress and held a small bouquet I bought that morning. He wore a light shirt and looked handsome in the soft glow of the sun. As we exchanged rings, I felt as if I were stepping into a new life filled with hope. I truly believed our story would be beautiful. For a few weeks after the wedding, everything felt perfect. He woke each morning smiling and kissed my forehead. He made breakfast with soft music playing. He followed me through the house with gentle affection. He sent loving messages during the day and whispered kind words whenever he passed me. I felt safe. I felt happy. I allowed myself to enjoy it without questioning it. I wanted to believe in what we had built. It felt like a precious gift. But slowly, a shadow began to appear. One evening, he came home looking tense. His phone was clenched tightly in his hand. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with worry. When I asked what was wrong, he sat down slowly and took a deep breath. He told me his former girlfriend had contacted him. Her name was Nora. He said she was angry and wanted to cause trouble. He said she wanted to tell lies to the police. He said she wanted to tell people he married me for money. His voice shook. He looked ashamed and frightened, like someone seeking protection. I felt fear, but also sympathy. I believed he was in danger. I believed he needed me. I asked what she wanted. He said she wanted money to stay silent. He said he hated asking me for help. He said he was ashamed. My heart softened. I felt responsible for him. I wanted to protect our new life. I gave him money, believing it would keep him safe. He held me close, kissed my forehead, and whispered that I had saved him. I felt needed. I felt important. I did not know that this moment was the beginning of something dark. I did not know it was the first thread in a long, hidden plan. At that time, I only saw the fear in his face and the trust in his eyes. I wanted to help him. I wanted to protect our love. I could not imagine that the truth behind his fear was something entirely different. I could not imagine the storm waiting ahead. After the first payment, I hoped everything would return to normal. I wanted the soft mornings, the warm smiles, and the calm evenings when he rested his head on my shoulder. For a short while, things did feel normal. He acted gentle and loving. He made tea and told me small stories from his classes. I wanted to believe the trouble was over. I wanted peace so deeply that I ignored the small signs of change. 2 weeks later, he came home late again. His face looked tired and his hands were shaking. He sat on the edge of the sofa, and a cold wave of fear moved through me. He said Nora had contacted him again. He said she wanted more money. He said she was angry and wanted to destroy him. His voice sounded weak, and his eyes were full of sadness. My heart softened again. Even though something inside me felt wrong, I pushed that feeling away because I loved him. I told myself that love meant helping the person you chose. So I helped again. The following month brought more strange moments. Sometimes he moved through the house with tense shoulders and quiet steps. Sometimes he said nothing all evening. When I asked what was wrong, he spoke in a low voice about new threats. He said he was trying to fix everything. Each time he asked for help, I believed him because I wanted our life to stay whole. I gave him money again and again. I tried to remain calm, but I felt something dark slowly spreading through our home. I felt like I was losing control without understanding how. One morning, I woke up in an empty bed. His side was cold. I waited, thinking he might be in the kitchen or bathroom. When I heard nothing, I walked through the house. Every room was silent. Too silent. His shoes were gone. His jacket was missing. I opened the wardrobe and saw empty spaces where his clothes once were. A heavy pressure filled my chest. I called his name, even though the silence already felt final. I checked his phone. It was switched off. I opened my computer and checked my bank accounts. At first, I saw a few numbers that did not make sense. Then I saw more. Money had been taken in small steps, tiny amounts at first, then larger ones. I checked my business accounts and felt the blood drain from my face. More money had disappeared, month by month. I sat on the floor and covered my face with my hands. The truth arrived in one painful moment. There was no Nora. There were no threats. There was only a long, careful lie. For days I felt empty. I could not think clearly. I could not understand how I had trusted someone who studied my heart before breaking it. But slowly, I stood again. I protected my business. I asked my team for help. I rebuilt what I had lost.
The pain remained, but I learned something important. Love can feel warm and beautiful, yet sometimes it hides a truth that is quiet and sharp. Now I live near the sea. I'm more careful and stronger. I still believe in kindness, but I also believe in listening to a small voice inside that warns us when something feels wrong. It is a hard lesson, but it is mine.